Terror in Charlottesville, that is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. White nationalists showed up in Charlottesville on Saturday protesting the removal of a Robert E. Lee statue. It's important to note that this was a nationwide rally that had been advertised for a month. Yet only a few hundred people showed up. This shows you how fringe the movement is. But it wasn't just white supremacists who showed up. Black Lives Matter radicals, Antifa members, and other so-called anti-fascist left-wing fringe groups descended upon the scene looking for trouble. Both sides came armed to the teeth with pepper spray, makeshift clubs, and shields. Here's an image that encapsulates what was going on. Shockingly, law enforcement in Charlottesville did not get in between the protesters or disperse the crowd, even as it turned violent. Fox News reporter Doug McElway reported it this way.
Nobody was intent upon peace here from either side. People were intent on causing havoc and causing damage. And even as wounded were being brought out of the park, the police were sitting idly by. But when the tear gas started to fly, thrown by protesters, the police themselves began to evacuate that. I asked the guy who was in charge, I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "We're leaving. It's too dangerous." They had an opportunity to nip this thing in the bud, and they chose not to.
The police chief and the Charlottesville mayor are going to have to answer for this dereliction of duty. Things turned deadly when a man rammed his Dodge Challenger into a crowd of protesters, killing a 20-year-old female, Heather Heyer. The driver of the car was James Alex Fields, Jr. Media reports suggest he is a loner and a white supremacist sympathizer. Now, if the allegations against Fields are true, this man is a political terrorist and a bigot. The crew that he's running with, especially the ones that came to the rally armed with street weapons, are despicable people. After news of this broke, President Trump said this.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides. It's been going on for a long time in our country. Not Donald Trump, not Barack Obama. This has been going on for a long, long time. It has no place in America. What is vital now is a swift restoration of law and order and the protection of innocent lives.
The president was clearly condemning violence on all sides, which there was. And he was looking at this from a big picture perspective in the larger context of hatred in America. By condemning violence on all sides, the president was condemning white supremacists as well as the left-wing activists who were mixing it up on the streets too. But the president's failure to specifically condemn the white supremacists by name, who were the ones that instigated the protests and whose actions allegedly led to death, has caused upheaval. CNN's Ana Navarro said this.
This speech today was shameful. Here is the bottom line. This was not many sides. This is one side. It is white supremacists trying to instill terror in the streets of America.
Kurt Bardella on MSNBC added this.
America First is really code for white first. This is the Republican Party right now that's on display. Donald Trump's Republican Party.
Maxine Waters tweeted this. No, Trump, not on many sides, your side. And Rob Reiner said, let's be clear. The hatred we're seeing in Virginia lies at the feet of Donald Trump. Stoked during the campaign, his silence condones this. And John Legend added, we have Nazi sympathizers and white nationalists in the White House. Condemn them too. They should not be receiving taxpayer money. And Michael Moore wrote, Trump's America. The last days of white rule. It's always a bitch to have to give up power you've held for 300 years. The left quickly taking advantage of a tragedy to smear the President of the United States as a racist responsible for death. First of all, Black Lives Matter and Antifa have more connections to the Democratic Party than white supremacists have to the Republican Party. Left-wing radical groups have terrorized this country over the last several years, shooting police officers, rioting in the streets, and assaulting innocent civilians. Has the Democratic Party leadership condemned left-wing violence? Not so much. As a matter of fact, after a Bernie Sanders volunteer shot Republican Congressman Steve Scalise, Democratic leadership blamed both sides for the shooting.
There's a lot of heated rhetoric from all different directions.
I think there's sometimes rhetoric on all sides that are not quite acceptable.
I do think that the language, the rhetoric on both sides has gotten out of control.
And when a Black Lives Matter supporter assassinated police officers in Dallas, here's what President Obama said.
First of all, I think it's very hard to untangle the motives of this shooter. I think the danger, as I said, is that we somehow suggest that the act of a troubled individual speaks to some larger political statement across the country.
Now let's just pretend the white supremacist who was driving the car was a Muslim. The media would call him a lone wolf and say his motivations were unclear. Remember, this is how CNN described the Islamic terror attack in London as a van attack. Did they describe this as a Dodge Challenger attack? And the same people who don't like Donald Trump saying Islamic terrorism are urging him now to say white supremacism. For a party who called Islamic terrorism workplace violence, spare everybody the lectures. If hundreds of thousands of Islamic terrorists have nothing to do with Islam, then why does one white supremacist have anything to do with Donald Trump? We can use the left's own rationalizations against them all day, but we won't. It's tedious to listen to both sides fight over which side hates Nazis more. What we saw in Charlottesville were fringe fanatics who don't represent this country. America is not a racist nation. It's time we stop acting like it is.